With us, we have former MSNBC host Chris Matthews. His Substack is entitled Hardball with Chris Matthews, an opinion writer at the New York Times. Mara Gay is with us, and former U.S. ambassador to Denmark, Rufus Gifford. He was senior aide to both President Obama and President Biden and served as chief of protocol for President Biden with experience planning United Nations events. We'll get to the latest out of the UN in just a moment with Rufus. Chris Matthews, on Comey, looks like there's a bit of a deadline with this situation. Yeah. What's your take?
Well, let's watch. I mean, I think this is desperate vengeance. Clearly, it's about the president, who he doesn't like. Can I just say something, Mika? I've been thinking about this for days now. And I want to say something unusual. It's good news. I cannot believe that Ted Cruz came out of whatever world he's living in, and he has said that you can't get rid of people you don't like. You can't just go after people like Jimmy Kimmel and get rid of them. It'd be like Barack Obama saying, I don't like the late Rush Limbaugh, so I'm getting him off the radio. You guys own radio. We're going to get him off the radio. I don't like that guy. I mean, think about that. You know, I was thinking about what unites people like Rand Paul and Todd Young and Ted Cruz. They still believe, not just in the First Amendment, which protects religion and protest and speech and press. They do believe in that. But more importantly, they have an American spirit about freedom. They do get it, about the freedom of our freedom to speak. I was at the Berlin Wall when it came down, talking to East Germans on the other side of the wall. And I said to a young guy, what's freedom mean to you? Was ist Freiheit? And he said, talking to you. Do you know how fundamental it is to have free speech in our country? How fundamental it unites us to be able to spout your mouth off if you want, like Trump did at the UN? I mean, believe me, that guy knows what free speech is. And I'm telling you, free speech is so essential to who we are as Americans. And it was so great to see these green sprouts arrive and say, Ted Cruz talking like a mobster, talking about somebody shutting down your restaurant because you don't like the guy. Excuse me, this is great. It's come out of nowhere. I think it's green sprouts. I think there's hope. There is hope that people still believe in America.
That is a hopeful moment, but certainly Mauro, there's been a lot of concern on our show earlier today when George Packer was here talking about his latest piece about the benchmarks we're hitting towards losing this democracy. And certainly an attack on free speech would be one of them. But another would be the elimination of what has always been this traditional line between the West Wing and the Department of Justice. Right. And that's what we're seeing completely erode right now, is the President of the United States. This isn't even just a suggestion, like, oh, I hope someone will do. This is a flat-out instruction to his Attorney General to go after his political foes.
Yeah, and it's not just that there are ethical lines that have been breached. It's about the fundamental, if you just pull back, this is about fundamentally our democratic institutions being weaponized by the President of the United States to go after his political enemies. That is not based on justice or a system of laws. That's based on authoritarianism. That's a sign of authoritarianism. And when you see that this happening with James Comey, but also potentially with New York Attorney General Tish James, this is deeply concerning. And one of the questions about Lindsay Halligan is whether even career prosecutors are going to be willing to show up and argue this case against James Comey. It's going to come down to individuals in Congress and individuals throughout the government, including at the DOJ, whether or not we can hold on to this democracy. We're not just a system of laws, we're a system of people who make decisions, and Ted Cruz has got to stand up, not just for free speech, but be willing to hold a check on this president when he's going after his political enemies using democratic institutions. And, this is deeply concerning. The resignation of attorneys general across the country is one sign that we could be losing this quickly.
Yeah. So, Mr. Ambassador, with the United Nations General Assembly in town this week, we could talk about the escalator. Yeah. Or we could talk about this in terms of how it's being seen around. There's a lot of things happening at once, and some of them might be kind of amusing, but at the same time, they have similar strains to them, and it involves either disinformation or retribution. Yeah. What do you think from the outside looking in? Because a lot of countries around the world depend on us to be strong.
Yeah. Mika, I think when I watched the UN speech, and I hope everyone does, because I really do think it paints a picture of who Donald Trump is. And having worked with presidents in the past and planned for speeches which are intended to focus on American leadership and intended to be unifying, the speech that Donald Trump gave 2 days ago was anything but unifying. And this is the thing that I always want Americans to know. The vast majority of Americans don't listen to Donald Trump's UN speech. But you know who does? Our friends and allies around the world. And the people that I have heard from in the last 48 hours who do live in Europe.
Yeah.
And it's not just the diplomats. Yes, the diplomats reach out and are horrified. It's what sort of message are you sending to us? Yes, I get that. But what breaks my heart as an American and as someone who actually truly does care about these countries that have made the world, helped us make the world peaceful and prosperous for the last 80 years are my friends, the street, the European street, the average Europeans who literally are apoplectic and are not just canceling their trips to the United States. That's happening. That's been reported. But now boycotting Coca-Cola, now saying they won't go to McDonald's anymore. And this is going to impact every single one of us. So I just want Americans, when they watch and maybe laugh at some of the stuff that Donald Trump says in his speech, that this will impact all of us eventually, every single one of us, because we are, this is, to Europeans in particular, that stuff hits them at the core. Yeah. And the United States has been a shining beacon of hope for them.
So, Mr. Ambassador, we've joked about the escalator, but it's less of a laughing matter if the president now took to Truth Social last night claiming it is some sort of UN conspiracy, and which could even impact the relations between the U.S. And that body.
Jonathan, the escalator and the teleprompter are such a distraction to me. For anyone who's worked around a president, as many of us have, there is absolutely no way that there is a rogue anti-Trump UN escalator operator that watched Donald Trump get on the escalator and then turn it off. I mean, it's a ridiculous, ridiculous, ridiculous assertion. Same with the teleprompter. I mean, this is his team. When the White House, when the president moves anywhere, it is his team responsible for all of his movements. So for them to place blame on anyone else, it's vintage Donald Trump. It's so disappointing. And it's just, obviously we're better than that, but we've been saying that for 10 years. So but it's crazy.
So, Chris, to you on the UN, more of the substance now. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the president's rhetorical shift on the Ukraine-Russia conflict, although there's been some skepticism as to whether or not he will have a follow-through to that. And then, secondly, we're losing a guest here. We're losing. There we go. The ambassador went for a Joe Scarborough push ride right there. It is.
Stop doing that.
Joe,
I didn't know we were back.
You're on air.
And if I had known this group was here, baby, and Chris Matthews in Washington, this is like Night of 1,000 Stars in the morning.
You know what?
This is great.
I was trying to text you.
Rufus, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you too, Joe.
Sorry,
thanks for having me. Yeah, I love it. Are you kidding?
We were talking about the escalator.
Oh, my God. Chris Matthews.
Well, Rufus, nice to see you again, Rufus.
On.
I saw you at your house recently. It's nice to see you. Let me, I think that his coming down the escalator is more a problem. Ever since he's come down the escalator, he has spewed this hatred. We talk about, I've written about speechwriters who had the job of writing great speeches for the president, FDR or John F. Kennedy, people like that. They're all uniting speeches. All the great speeches in American history given by presidents have been uniting speeches. They've tried to bring everybody together. And Reagan, after the Challenger crash, it was an attempt to bring people together, that school kids understand why we just lost people, including Kristen McAuliffe, and to understand what it means to be an American and to care about each other, caring about each other. This guy's speech was Howard Beale at its worst. It was like crazy watching him. I kept looking at the African guys in the first row. These people must wonder how we elected them.
Chris, the thing is, though, and this is the crazy thing. I think there's a New York Times piece today about the disconnect between, and I talked to an ambassador yesterday. I said, well, how do you feel when you're hearing these speeches at the UN? They're like, that's for his MAGA base. When he talks to us one-on-one, it's fine. Yeah. And that's what's happening. So Britain puts on a great state visit for him. and then he attacks, and then you have these one-on-one meetings where they're like, oh, well, actually, he's very charming. Not everybody.
Well, we know
you.
that.
But,
Joe,
but
you
I'm
know
just
that.
saying, though,
That.
I wonder, though, Mara, do you think European leaders who've seen Macron, others seem to have a better personal relationship with him? Do you think they're starting to understand that a lot of that is for domestic consumption?
You know, maybe, but then I think about the moment where he threw Zelensky out of the White House.
Yeah.
And, you know, I do think that this is somebody who's constantly thinking about how to one-up, especially men on the world stage. This is someone who's a bully. And this is about deal-making for him. So he's extremely erratic. And it is, I guess, heartening that they can have some civilized conversations with the president. But to what end? I'm not really convinced yet. I can't get the images of the Zelensky meeting out of my head.
And the thing is, everything is personal. It's all personal. John has been writing about this now for a couple of months about how Donald Trump's getting more and more upset at Putin. So that's getting personal now. I'm curious what your thoughts are about the possibility. You obviously you served there. What about European nations that are now hearing the president say, if Russia flies a drone or an aircraft over your airspace, shoot it down?
Yeah. Look, I actually think that's a positive sign for them. I think that European leaders for the last 10 years, honestly, have been waiting for Donald Trump to take a stronger, at least, you know, look, I think they're still skeptical, let's be clear. But I think those moments where he may be taking a slightly stronger tone against Putin, I think it's welcome.
Well, and also saying that, hey, it's possible Ukraine could get all its land back. That is a radical departure from what he was saying even 2 or 3 weeks ago.
It's a radical departure, something I welcome. I do not understand what possibly could have happened in the 1 week since he said something completely different, what led him to make that Truth Social post. And I would certainly encourage all of us not to conduct our foreign policy or all our hopes based on one Truth Social post.
Right.
And let's see what.
Yeah.
But again, there has been an arc here. And I'm not saying he's not going to say something completely different next week. I'm saying, though, for those who just say, this is random, that's random, there actually has been sort of a through line on that relationship between Trump and Putin.
Yeah, the rhetorical, it's been an evolution, but it's been mostly in the same direction. He's been angrier at Putin, a little more encouraging to the Ukrainian cause, though, and we're told that recently he was briefed, including in the meeting with Zelensky, about the impact that Ukraine's had attacking the Russian energy industry. He was heartened by that. And Anne Applebaum was on earlier talking about those drone attacks and how that's come to be. So I think that is a step in the right direction. The issue is that there are many European leaders, and those in Washington too, who feel like this is really going to be an off-ramp for Trump, is that he is going to keep allow NATO to buy weapons, but he's distancing himself from the process itself and no longer talking. We haven't heard for weeks now any suggestion of a summit with Putin, Zelensky, and Trump.
But you had said before, didn't you say this morning to Ann that you saw some news at Zelensky saying that in the conversations with Trump, the president said that they would actually support.
Yeah, that was what Willie's question to Ann was about that, and that Zelensky said that there might be more weapons heading that way, but she was not clear what it was, and Zelensky and our reporting, no one has been able to confirm what that might be.
We've got to let the ambassador go, but really quickly, Chris Matthews, which means I'm not going to let the ambassador go. Really quickly, Chris Matthews. If anybody ever says really quickly, Chris Matthews, or really quickly, Joe Scarborough, it doesn't work. Really quickly, Chris Matthews. The thing about Donald Trump is he smells weakness. He smells weakness, and for some reason, he has intel that Russia's economy is really starting to collapse.
I think he does, and I think there's hope there for us in the West that we can actually have a way to help Ukraine and to help Zelensky, and that he can reverse his behavior in the Oval Office just weeks ago. And I'll tell you one thing, he must be thinking, too, about Todd Young right now. Who is this guy that speaks against me? Well, we know Rand Paul because he's a First Amendment guy, but what's Ted Cruz up to? He's got a new enemies list now. These are people who have fought, who have come out publicly to support Jimmy Kimmel and said, you know what, you're wrong, Mr. President. You don't shut down your enemies in this country. You let them talk, because that's how America works. It works because people are able to speak up against power, and you can't stuff them. You can't kill these guys. And I think it's a bit. He must be thinking who these guys are, and do they know they're starting something here? Maybe they are starting something. And I'd like to think that of all people, Ted Cruz is one who he accused his father of killing Jack Kennedy. I mean, this guy does have a history with Trump, and he knows how he lies. And so it's great that Trump's now got a new enemies list, hopefully on the right. It'll be great.